Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my brothers and sisters, and welcome to this evening's programme. Yes, you're listening to Radio Mac, broadcasting on 107.1 FM from the heart of Bradford, and I'm your host Asif Sabah in the studio. And today we're going to continue our conversation about how glorious the Quran is and how it can help you on your journey through this world. And we're going to be looking at some ideas and 4 amazing ways that Quranic wisdom can bring about a positive change in your life. But before we do that, we give thanks and praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to come into your homes to bring you messages of hope, happiness, peace, love and well-being, and that we may remind you of the favours that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on you. As you know, this programme is dedicated to exploring the spiritual and the symbolic language of the Quran. The Quran that I use is the Allama Abdullah Yusuf Ali version that's been translated from Arabic to English. And the main features of these talks are about what it's like to be a spiritual person living in this physical world. If what I quote does not match up exactly with the version of the Quran that you have, it may be that you have got a different edition. And so today, yes, we're going to be talking about 4 powerful ways that Quranic wisdom can bring about a positive change in your life. And the Quran, as you know, it came down from the highest of heavens into this world through the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And he shared it with everyone around, and the Quran is filled with amazing wisdom, and it's when you start to read it with an intention to learn, an intention to know and understand, that's when you start to get the most out of it. And the Quran is a book that will allow you to, or it will help you to change what is within yourself, not for the worst but for the best, because it gives you that spiritual guidance as you go through your life in this world, and it teaches you so many times or so many things. And the beauty about the Quran is this, that the more you read it, the more little bits of its wisdom will stay in your mind. And the more this wisdom stays in your mind, the better it is for you, because what will happen then is you will start to see some amazing things taking place in your life, and it will also help you, because you'll remember certain things from the wisdom within the Quran that will help you on your own spiritual journey. Now, one of the things that it will allow you to do is when you get into difficulties, it will give you a chance to look within yourself, reflect within yourself, and as you remember the verses that you read within the Quran, you'll be able to recall that verse to help you to deal with some of the situations that arise in your life. So maybe you're just not feeling as positive, or you're feeling unhappy about something, but then you get certain little passages that will stick in your mind the more you read the Quran, because they will tell you things like, in the end, all things come to an end. Difficulties will ease, and by overcoming the situation, a part of your journey is when your own soul must come up struggling for itself. And also it gives you a feeling of healing, because the verses contain such wisdom that when you apply them to your life, you can use that wisdom to get through any situation that you're going through, and it eases the pressure. Now imagine if you didn't have such a verse or such a piece of wisdom in your life to help you through a situation. You'd most probably start to think in a negative way. You know, your negative emotions would rise up to the surface, and you would hold on to those thoughts, and only those thoughts, because you don't have anything else to give you that guidance to counteract the negative self-talk that we all give ourselves. And so what the Quran does, when you read it on a regular basis, you'll start to apply that wisdom to your life. And you don't need to apply everything all at once. It's a matter of reading it, taking that wisdom and applying it to your life. So a situation may come up where you need to struggle, you need to get through to the other side of a situation that is going on in your life right now. And so what the Quran will do, it will through memory recall, the verses that you read that you can recall and associate to the situation will act as a guide to ease some of the pain, some of the anguish, some of the maybe the negative emotions that have arisen up because of the situation that's maybe taking place in your life. So this is the beauty of the wisdom of the Quran, and how it can really help you on your journey to overcome the negative emotions and even the harmful thoughts that we think. Now, one of the amazing things, and I keep going on about this, is that the Quran is filled with so much inspiration, so much information. Now, it's not always plain to see. And the Quran uses nature to symbolically explain things to you. So you may be reading the Quran and you'll come across certain verses and you may be thinking, well, it's just talking about crops or harvests and different things like that. But really, it's sending a message to your inner soul. Because as you know, I've spoken, and I'm going to remind you of this, that the Quran, say for example, it talks about crops, weeds, gardens, harvests, and things like that. Well, if you think about a crop, what is a crop? You know, it's something that you can grow in your harvest or in a field or something like that. But a crop can also be a thought that you think. Now, if you take, say, the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let's say, for example, love. That's the easiest one I can explain. I can use other ones, but you'll understand what I'm talking about here. Love. Now, what does love mean to you? Now, if you think about the meaning behind love, you can come up with words of piety, gratitude, forgiveness, healing, compassion. All these different words you can associate to the word love. So, love is the crop. Now, the grains that grow out of the crop are all the words that you can associate to the meaning of the word love. So everything you think about when you think about what does love mean to me, the additional thoughts, well, love is the crop. The additional thoughts that you think are the grains that come out of the crop. Just like you get a plant, it grows, and then you get flowers that grow out of that plant. And so you can see how the Quran uses nature to explain spiritual activity. Now, when you look within yourself, when you grow a crop and it sprouts grains, what does this do to you? How do you feel about that? Well, what basically happens is those grains that grow out of the expression of love become planted within the garden of your soul. So again, you can look at how the Quran uses nature to explain certain things to you. So the Quran is allowing you to grow within your soul a beautiful garden. Now you think, what are the weeds that are grown within your garden? Well, those weeds are the negative emotions that you experience. Now, the Quran talks about this in terms of cattle. So, when you're reading the Quran and the Quran talks about cattle, think of the harmful thoughts that you think within your mind. They are like cattle in your brain, in your mind. And when you enter into your real negative emotions, where you're almost feeling depressed, well, what do you think that is? That is when the Quran talks about beasts roaming the land. Now, if you think about yourself as, well, everything contained within yourself, you are a world unto yourself, if you understand what I'm saying. So, for example, if you close your eyes and cut off everything that's going on around you, so you have entered your own inner world. You have gone within yourself. Now, nothing really exists outside of yourself because you have gone into your own inner world. You may think, oh, I'm just sat in my living room. I'm just sat in my car. Wherever you are, if you've closed your eyes and you've just focused on yourself, physically you may be in those places. But mentally and spiritually, you have actually entered into your own inner world. So when you are in your inner world, what you will find is everything that you have accepted as a truth. Now, if you've planted negative, harmful thoughts, then they will grow up to be weeds. And mentally, you will be like a barren land. So for those people who regularly read the Quran, you'll be able to relate some of the things that I'm saying to the verses when the Quran talks about a barren land with no, it's hard as a rock. There's nothing, no real growth taking place there. Well, that is because the harmful thoughts are dominating your inner world, the place where you are within, and all you're seeing is these harmful thoughts. And that's not like a beautiful place to be, because all you'll be thinking about is harmful, negative thoughts. So how do you transform that? Well, you transform it by reading words of wisdom. It doesn't matter what kind of book you're reading, as long as you're taking in that wisdom. But the Quran is an amazing book. It's a book that allows you to really go beyond this material world and see yourself for who you really are. So it allows you to look within yourself. And when you start to apply the wisdom of the Quran and apply it not to the external world, but to your own inner self, and you see yourself as being the garden, especially when you close your eyes and meditate. You go within your own inner world, and then you can imagine yourself as this garden where you plant seeds, you grow the crops. The negative emotions are the beasts that roam your land. The harmful thoughts are the cattle, because they just stand around making noise and complaining about everything. And so can you see now how the wisdom of the Quran uses nature to explain spiritual truths? So it does really come down to, which direction do you focus your attention? Do you look within yourself where the real journey is? Or are you always focused on the external world and only interpreting the verses to the external? Because I'll tell you something now. You will find that when you focus on your inner self and interpret the verses of the Quran to your inner self, you will get so much more out of the verses, because you will be able to see those verses in action within yourself. And so this is what I mean when I talk about that there's a meaning behind the wisdom of the Quran. But it all depends in which direction do you focus your consciousness and your attention. And it's always best to look within yourself and focus on what is going on within yourself. Not focus on what is going on in the external world, because then you start to look at what other people are doing instead of looking at what you should be doing. So the more you focus on yourself and apply the wisdom of the Quran to yourself, and when you're reading the stories from the Quran, apply them to yourself. See the Quran as a diary about your life. Don't see it as a history book. It's a book about a spiritual journey. Whose spiritual journey? It's your spiritual journey. Because you will come up before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bare and alone. And you'll return, and you will have to check out everything that you've been doing in your life, because you know everything is recorded, and you will have a life's review of everything you did. Every single thought and even every feeling within your heart, even feelings you don't know you're having, will be inquired into when you are called to account. But we will look into that. I will do a program specifically on that. But at the moment, I'm just kind of talking here, there and everywhere. But we will get to look at these 4 positive ways that the Quran can bring about a positive change in your life. But just to give you a bit of background information, just so that when you're reading the Quran, you can then learn to understand maybe a little bit more as you're reading, and then as you begin to apply the verses to yourself, this is when you'll really start to get the most out of the Quran, because you'll be able to see within the verses this amazing wisdom, this beautiful wisdom that will heal your soul. It will raise you up. It will fill you with so much wisdom that you will almost explode, as it were. You'll be so happy. You'll be so delighted that you can now see beyond where you were seeing before. It will open your mind to things that you may have skipped over because you didn't quite understand, or you just associated it to the external world. But then you have got something to apply it to yourself. It's like a gift to you, and you can take that wisdom and really apply it to yourself so that it can help you on your own journey. That is the beauty of the wisdom of the glorious Quran. It is so full of information. It will absolutely astound you. And you'll grow in wisdom, and no longer will you be like a barren desert with only harmful negative thoughts, but you'll begin to flourish and grow in a beautiful harvest within yourself. Because again, coming back to this idea that when you go within yourself, when you focus within yourself, when you reflect within your mind, you'll start to see who you really are. And you will be able to realize that you have a choice about what you plant in the garden of your soul through free will. And you'll accept certain things and you'll reject certain things. And this is why the truth, well, what is truth at the end of the day? Think about it. The truth always changes. Why? Because you have changed. The truth is never, although there's only one truth, but there are so many versions of the truth. You know, so think of, because you change, what is right yesterday, you could learn something and it could override what was right yesterday because you've learned something new. So while you're on this journey, you will find that your truth changes as you grow. So never hold on to anything and say, this is the absolute truth and this is the only truth. Because you will change accordingly. I mean, there are certain things that we know are true, like there is only one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, certain things. But a lot of things, you will learn new things that will expand your understanding, expand your awareness, and expand your consciousness. And this is you growing. And as long as you're learning and growing, that is how you raise your consciousness. And, you know, it's good to understand that, you know, you are on a pathway, you are developing, and if we were perfect, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't need to come here, but we're here to get rid of our imperfections. And as long as we are working on our imperfections, we will consciously and spiritually move forward. And the beauty about this life is we have that free will and choice. Those are two things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. If we choose not to go forward, that is to the loss of our own souls. If we decide through choice to keep manufacturing harmful negative emotions, that is our choice, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us intelligence. And we can use that intelligence to move ourselves forward or hold ourselves back. But eventually, all pathways must lead back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're all on a pathway, no matter who we are, no matter where we are. Every human being in this world is on their own spiritual pathway back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now it's up to us. We can shoot forward or we can dilly-dally and stay behind. But choice is ours, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us free will, and He gave us a choice. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't break His own laws. So hold on to wherever you are with your truth, but also look to expand and grow in a greater truth. And that's when you know you are open to change. And so we will start to look at 4 powerful ways that Quranic wisdom can bring about a positive change in your life. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my brothers and sisters, and welcome back. You are listening to Radio Mac, broadcasting on 107.1 FM from the heart of Bradford. And I'm your host, Asif Sabah, in the studio at Radio Mac. And I still do have a little bit of a cold. I think the last, which day was it now? Sunday. I just could not stop sneezing. It was like every I don't know how many times, but so many times. Well, my cold has gone a little bit, but I'm just feeling a little bit chesty at the moment. I think it's one of those colds, it moves from one place to another, and, at least it's on its way out. So I think by the next programme, I'll be back into full swing. But we're talking about the Quran and how beneficial it is to you on your journey through this world, and how its verses can be a healing for your soul, and also how the Quran contains a language. It's got like a language within a language, and the more you read it and the more you actually apply it to yourself rather than the external world, this is when you really start to get so much benefit. This is where you really do see the amazing benefits that the Quran can have on you, and how it can impact you and change everything about what you think, because we all have our perception about what we think the world is about, through our interactions with other people, to maybe what we see on the TV. That is a big influence over how we see the world, and all the adverts and everything. It kind of shapes our perception because it creates thoughts within our mind, and those thoughts then go on to create our reality. And so we start to see people in certain ways, under certain circumstances, and our whole experience of life is all based on our own thoughts. Now, when you think about what the Quran is thought activity in motion. Because as you read the Quran, you will take in those words, translate them as thoughts. They become thoughts within you, and then you use those thoughts, and they shape your perception of the world. That is the power of your thoughts. That is how strong and how influential the life of the world can be over you. It's just like, say, fashion or many of the other things that go on in the world. The power of our thoughts shape our reality. When you take away the thoughts, then our reality changes. And this is one thing that the Quran can do for you. Not take away your thoughts, but transform you. Help you to change, to become the best version of yourself. So it is important to find ways to bring positive changes into your life and cultivate inner peace. And for Muslims, the Quran serves as a source of guidance and inspiration, offering wisdom that can transform lives for the better. And that is the beauty of the Quran. And when you start to pay attention to the wisdom of the Quran, this is when you start to really take hold of those words of wisdom and really apply them to yourself and draw them up into your mind and force a change to the negative emotions and the harmful thoughts that we can end up thinking about. So this is the power of the Quran. And even one little sentence, one little verse from the Quran can bring such a healing to your soul, because it has such an amazing impact upon you that it just dilutes any of the harmful thoughts that try to block your vision. And as you take those words of wisdom into your inner soul and allow them to become a part of you, this is when they can help you to disperse those negative emotions or those harmful thoughts that keep flowing up into your mind, to draw and distract you away from that inner peace that you are looking for. And we are all looking for a certain kind of inner peace and tranquility as we live our lives. So how the Quran's wisdom nurtures tranquility amidst all the chaos and adversity that we can find going on around us. Well, you'll be surprised. Life is full of uncertainties, and you will find that Quranic wisdom serves you with special insights and wise words that bring peace and tranquility to your soul. And it's through the verses, they emphasize patience, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mindfulness, tranquility, bliss. So they offer all sorts of guidance on how to navigate difficult times with grace and resilience. And that is something that the Quran can do for you when you read it. And by internalizing these teachings that you find, or these verses that you find within the Quran, and continually turning to the Quran for guidance, you will be able to cultivate a sense of inner peace that transcends the chaos of the outside world. And of course, when you do that, when you start to apply the wisdom of the verses to the Quran, this is when you start to build up trust and wisdom, and you transform your inner garden into a beautiful garden of great beauty and what's the word I'm looking for? You know, when something is transformed from a barren desert into a beautiful garden. Well, this is what the Quran does for you. So look at your inner self as being a garden, and the verses that you hold on to and plant within yourself and apply them to yourself and accept as truth, they build a foundation. And then out of that foundation, just like we talked about, what does love mean to you? And all the grains that spring out of the understanding of what love means to you. This is what happens when you take those verses of the Quran into yourself, into your heart center, and hold on to them and use them to transform your life. So that is where the Quran can bring tranquility through its wisdom especially when you're going through situations of chaos and adversity. Now, harnessing Quranic teachings, they will help you in your everyday personal growth. That's something else that the Quran can do. So let's look at that point too. So the Quran contains timeless principles that promote personal growth and development within you. And from teachings on self-discipline and humility and piety, trust and truth, to the importance of seeking knowledge and self-reflection, Quranic wisdom offers like a roadmap, a direction for you to becoming, let's say, the best version of yourself. And by incorporating these teachings into your daily life and striving to embody their values, you will be able to experience profound personal transformation and growth within your own self. Because as you accept these amazing verses, as you read the Quran, and those verses I'm talking about that jump out at you, because the first time you read the Quran, and I was just writing something about this in my second book, the first time you read the Quran, what may happen is that you'll see a lot of the base matter ideas that relate to your vision of the world, how you saw the world, how you see the world. And that will kind of jump out at you because that's where your thought processes will be in the beginning. And I'm talking about reading the Quran in a language you understand. So first you may read it in a particular way. And then what happens, you start to see certain things within the verses because that's where your thinking is at this present time. So on the first reading, you may see, very basic things that you can relate to yourself. However, you know where the magic really takes place? It's in your second reading. Because once you've finished, you'll have taken whatever information jumped out at you, and it will become a part of you, and it cleared away a little clearance. It created that little gap within you, and it may have brushed away some weeds because you accepted the truth and the wisdom that you saw in the first reading. Now the magic happens in the second reading, where you start to read the Quran again. So the stuff you saw the first time will be there, and it will jump out at you, and you'll say, oh yeah, I remember that, yeah, that, and you'll go through, as you're reading the Quran, all the little things that you remember the first time, and then you'll start to see something special. You'll be reading the Quran for the second time, and you know what you're going to find? You're going to find, you're going to say, oh, how did I miss that bit? Why didn't I see that the first time I read the Quran? Well, there's a reason. The first time you read the Quran, there was a clearing, and it moved out a lot of harmful, negative thoughts, just brushed them aside and diluted them a little bit, like, say, disinfectant in some water. You just pour some disinfectant in. Now you don't wash the floor straight with the disinfectant. You'll add some water to dilute it. Well, the Quran is like the water diluting the thoughts that you had within yourself. So it cleared away, diluted them a little bit. So when you read the Quran the second time, you'll come across verses and you'll say, well, why didn't I notice that verse the first time, it's like it jumps out at you and you're saying, whoa, what is this verse? And as you read it, you'll think, wow, that is amazing. And so on the first time, it cleared out some rubbish from within your soul. The second time, it allowed new information to come into you. And you realized, wow, that was amazing. So imagine what happens if you read the Quran for a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. I mean, over the years, you don't have to read it all in. I'm just talking in general. The amazing information you will take from the Quran will leave you literally in tears. Because each time you read the Quran, you will find something new within its wisdom. Something, and you'll each time you'll go, well, why didn't I see that the first time? What is it? What is going on? Now, you might not see the amazing changes much within yourself, but I guarantee you will become so much more than you were. The pain that you had, the pain that you felt, that will transform into light. And it will clear some of the negative emotions that you may have experienced on a previous occasion. And so this is the beauty of the glorious Quran and how it can help you to get rid of the negative emotions and those harmful thoughts that you think, and help you to transform yourself into light, because it draws you up in stages and contractions. So as you know, between man and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are 70,000 veils of light. Each veil is like a heaven. And so as you consciously start to ascend, now we're talking about a conscious ascension, not a physical ascension. We base everything on about money. How much money we have depends on what status we can apply to ourselves. Well, the Quran works in the opposite way. It's not about how much money you have. It's about where your consciousness is residing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise you up in consciousness according to the work you do on yourself. Because if you don't learn to fix yourself, society is never going to change. It's going to continue. And we have it within our own selves, the ability to make the changes. But if we're not prepared to change, things will never change. Things will never change. They will never get better. And money won't make them better. You think of all the people who have got so much money. Yet, I'm sure, you just watch the TV, you'll think, well, that person had so much money. Why did they commit suicide? Why did they do this? Why did they do that? Because, money isn't the answer to everything. Throwing money at things doesn't really fix a problem. What really fixes a problem is yourself. By ascending and raising your consciousness from the harmful thoughts that you think, and finding that tranquility and peace. That is how you are going to make changes in the world, because from that tranquility and peace will come different thoughts. You'll approach your whole life in a different way. You'll look at life and you'll think, you'll approach it with love, is the first thing. And you know what is contained within the expression of love. Most of the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you go through life expressing yourself in love, trust and truth and all these beautiful piety and happiness, compassion, peace and harmony, then life is going to be a lot better. It's those who are running through life at the lower levels of consciousness that are causing what could be looked at as many of the problems. But even there, they are working on themselves. So we shouldn't judge anybody. Sometimes it takes a lot. There's a lot to deal with in life. And it's not easy. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows it's not easy. But what can we do for each other? We can work on ourselves to make ourselves the best version of ourselves. So that when we're interacting with others, we do it with love. We do it with a joy and tranquility and a peace of mind, so that we're not doing it in any kind of anger. So what we can do is apply Quranic guidance for a more harmonious connection, not only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but with each other. Because how we learn to communicate with ourselves is how we learn to communicate with others. And one of the central themes of the Quran is the importance of developing good relationships with others. Not always running around screaming and being angry. Allah sees all. There's a reason why things happen. So the Quran teaches virtues such as compassion, forgiveness and empathy, which are essential for building up strong and meaningful connections with family, with friends, with the wider community, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, if you practice compassion, if you practice forgiveness, if you practice empathy, and apply those to your life, that will automatically translate into a closer connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as you get closer in that way, that will produce automatically, you will express yourself in this way with other people you meet on your journey. And okay, they may not understand what you're about. They may need to work on themselves. But at least you're going into all your relationships with others with that compassion, with forgiveness, with empathy. You're not looking to criticize or boast or gossip, but you're looking to enter into relationships with other people that you meet on your journey through this world in a more loving way. And that will establish strong bonds between you and others, but more so between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to treat everyone with love, trust and truth. Be honest with them. Be compassionate with them. And love them. and forgive them. And that is so important. And you can learn to cultivate deeper bonds with others, and that will automatically contribute to creating a more harmonious and compassionate society by following the Quran's guidance on personal and everyday relationships. So how you treat others, that depends on what is inside of you. Again, always look to your own inner self, because that is how you will treat others, according to what is going on within your own inner world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my brothers and sisters, and welcome back. You are listening to Radio Mac, broadcasting on 107.1 FM from the heart of Bradford. And I'm your host, Asif Sabah, in the studio. And something I want to tell you is, if you have any questions regarding anything I talk about, or you want to know anything, or what I understand by a particular verse from the Quran, well, why don't you go to my website at www.asifsabahmindfulness.com, and there you'll be able to leave me a message. Just look on the first page. There'll be a box at the bottom of the first page, and if you want to send me a message, you'll be able to do that through my website. Now, any verses you'd like me to do a topic on, why don't you message me directly? And you'll be able to, send me messages or anything like that. And, if, whatever you send in, I'll look at, and I'll do a topic on any verses from the Quran that you'd like me to look at and give you an explanation about, and just how I see the verse and what it means to me, because that's what it's all about. What do the verses of the Quran mean to you? Well, all I do is come into the studio and I just talk about what the Quran means to me as an individual, and I share that wisdom or understanding with you. And so if you want to know what a particular verse within the Quran means to me, and you'd like me to share that information, of course I won't put your names out there unless you don't mind. You can always say, yes, I don't mind you mentioning, but I'll keep all things confidential. I'll just talk about a specific verse. You can just, if you want, just put your first name. Then I will just use your first name, but at least you will know who I'm talking about. But you'll know anyway by the verse that I use. I'll be able to give you warnings in advance. So say you want me to talk about a specific topic. If there's quite a few people who want me to talk about a specific topic, then what I'll do is I will say, okay, next week we're going to talk about this particular topic, or I'm going to be talking about these particular verses. So do feel free to go to my website at www.asifsabahmindfulness.com. And when you get there, you'll be able to send me a message and, make a connection, and I can do a talk on anything that you wish. And so that's something I don't mind doing. Anyway, let's just kind of round things up a little bit here as we talk about the Quran. So we just spoke about guidance for a more harmonious connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which was like point 3. And so the last point is utilizing Quranic wisdom to navigate life's changes, or life's challenges, should we say. And I know we've already talked a little bit about that, on how we can use the Quranic verses to help us through the challenges and the things that arise within our lives, and they kind of seem to block our view and we don't know how to deal with them. Well, sometimes just surrendering. And this is what we forget. What is the meaning of Islam? It's surrender. So surrender yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't know how to deal with this. Let me pass it over to you, and let me just take not a back seat, but let me just pass you the burden and help me to sort this out. And don't forget, Allah's got all these angels and everybody there looking to help us to solve solution and get solutions to questions that we have and confrontations that we have in life. They are there to help us, and they will work for your best interest, but also the best interests all around. So they see the best solution, and they will work with that to bring about that best solution to whatever it is you're going through. So put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're finding it difficult, just hand the situation. In other words, give it over to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surrender yourself. Then you are practicing Islam as it should be. And believe and put your trust in the outcome. Don't look for your own specific outcomes because you're looking for what's going to benefit you as an individual. Because then it's like tossing a pancake. You're looking for the best option, not the solution, but the option. And that's not always the best way to look for the option. Look for the solution that suits everybody. And don't make it always about yourself. So dealing with life's challenges, it can be overwhelming. But the Quran offers valuable insights and guidance on overcoming adversity as you search your soul for the best possible answers. And that answer will come, and you will gain a lot of inner strength from searching for those answers.